committee meeting. The date is November 23rd, 2021. I have some funny councillors opposite of me, facing me. But we will get the funny business over with and the real business on order. So I'll call this meeting to order. And first item of business, we have a delegation from the Grande Prairie Public Library. And I'm looking to say hello. Oh, hello.
Hello.
Yes, so please just introduce yourself. I see you have two of you, Nicole and Mark, and just go to town. We got about 5 minutes for the presentation. We did receive it. It's in our package, and yeah, we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okie dokie, I'll get going. Thank you for providing us an opportunity to tell you a little bit about the Grande Prairie Public Library. I'm Nicole Chappell. I'm the chair of the GPPL board, and I've been a member of the board since council appointed me in 2017. Since we now have some new members of council, we're here today to provide you with some background information to help you better understand what the beautiful library across the street does for this community. I understand that some people have a preconceived notion about library users, but the truth is that the library is for everyone. You can visit the library with no money in your pocket and leave rich. Your experience is catered to your needs and interests, from finding books about quilting and asking for help editing your resume, to attending a support group for people who've lost loved ones to suicide, and grabbing something to eat from our pantry. The 235,000 people who visit us each year include young families, new Canadians trying to start small businesses, oil and gas workers upgrading their tickets, teenagers playing on our gaming computers, and people experiencing homelessness who have nowhere else to go. And in my personal circumstance, a young mom with severe postpartum depression who just needed somewhere to go. There's a reason why libraries exist in almost every town and city. It's because we broadly serve everyone. Studies have shown that libraries are good for the economy in general, aside from acting as a resource for people starting new businesses or looking for new employment. Libraries function as economic drivers, enhancing the value of neighborhoods and making them more desirable places to live and work. Our location in the downtown core also increases foot traffic downtown and helps drive business to nearby shops. 20 months ago, our ability to serve our community members was curtailed when the library was forced to shut down due to COVID measures on Friday, March 13th, 2020. The following Monday, just 3 days later, we started offering curbside pickup services and continued to serve our community. Before many businesses adapted and before other libraries in Alberta adapted, we did. We quickly opened curbside delivery, which continues to be a vital service today. We shifted collection funds to purchase more e-resources and saw a 19% increase in e-resource use year over year by people who were stuck at home. We started a TikTok channel to engage our community where they are and to discuss the role that libraries play in communities. It has since grown to become one of the most followed library TikTok accounts in Canada and also serves to promote Grande Prairie to the world. We applied for grants to help us purchase Chromebooks and Wi-Fi hubs to loan to people who did not have reliable computer and internet access, but suddenly needed it for school, work, or to keep in touch with family and friends to help end their social isolation. We extended the program even further by working with TELUS to donate additional Wi-Fi hubs and received an additional grant from International Paper to help with funding some Wi-Fi hubs beyond the previous grant term. We've continued to provide them because of the support they offer to our communities. Those projects weren't one-off instances either. We've established a solid track record of finding additional funding and partnership opportunities to support our community. A few years ago, we started working with the Grande Prairie Hospital Foundation, using funding provided from Rotary to create Born to Read bags, ensuring families with new children receive a board book and information about early literacy before leaving the hospital. Community Futures funds Project Full Stop, which provides period products to everyone using the library to help end period poverty. Our Little Free Pantry, funded by the Sunrise Rotary Club and the Community Foundation, and donations, helps in supplementing the food bank and hamper programs by alleviating food insecurity in Grande Prairie, something that's more important than ever. As the library is a safe and inclusive space It is an ideal location for those who are low income or experiencing homelessness to help themselves to the food and hygiene products they require and to do so with privacy and dignity. Despite all the good our library does for this community, its economy, and its citizens, we are struggling. Many of the projects I've talked about today rely heavily on funding from grants, sponsorships, and donations. So far, we've been able to find that funding. However, those projects also require something else we cannot rely on outside funding for, which is staff time. We hope the library and the city can work together to ensure that the world-class flagship building across the street is providing library service equal to that of other mid-sized Alberta communities. The library is an important thread in the fabric of this community, and we look forward to ensuring that our partnership is a healthy one so we can benefit everyone, including the young families who don't have as much early literacy instruction for their children, the newly unemployed workers who won't have assistance updating their resumes and submitting job applications online, and the new business owners who will have to pay for computers and internet access before opening shop. I hope Council will reach out to me or to the library if they have any questions. Thank you for your time, and I'll now invite Mark just to say a few words.
Great, thank you. Thanks for providing us an opportunity to tell you a little bit about the champions of the Grande Prairie Public Library. I'm Mark Evans. I'm the former chair of the Grande Prairie Public Library and current chair of the Champions Group. I've been part of the library since Council appointed me to the board in 2014. The Champions of the Grande Prairie Public Library are an advocacy group for the library. Our function is to advocate for the library while also focusing on fundraising for special projects and collections. I should also mention that our group is brand new. We were only granted society status a couple of weeks ago. We have plans in progress, and we will be sure to share upcoming events, initiatives, and other activities with everyone soon. We know the value of the library and what it provides for the community. We also see the opportunities that it provides for the community. As a community hub to do even more. What brings value to your life? For many people, it can be broken down into two things, community and experiences. First, community. The library is a safe, non-judgmental space for everyone in the community, regardless of their background or circumstances. A new parent looking for others who are sleep-deprived and learning how to raise a tiny human. A newcomer to the community learning English and how to navigate Grande Prairie. A senior who lives in isolation and looks forward to their regular visits to the library and the opportunity to have a conversation with another person. A teen who doesn't feel safe at school or sometimes even at home. A person experiencing homelessness who needs access to basic resources that we might take for granted. All of these people come from vastly different places, but they all come to the library because they feel safe and are welcome. Second, experiences. There are so many things that Grande Prairie has to offer, and the library helps facilitate this in many different ways. Things, for example, you don't have to afford expensive sports equipment to enjoy a northern winter. The library things carries items like snowshoes a person can borrow to get out and enjoy the other 6 months of the year. Saving money. How much money would you save over the course of the year if you never bought another movie or book from Amazon, canceled all your streaming services, bought an item you only needed to use once instead of buying it? Could you have an extra monthly meal at your favorite downtown cafe? Could you save enough for a vacation? Encouraging interaction. The library brings people together, full stop. Whether it's a book club, writing group, paint night, almost anything you need to bring people together, you can do through the library. Champions will support this by advocating for more support and recognition from the community and by fundraising for different community experiences. There are so many opportunities to provide things that enrich our community, and the library is the perfect place to facilitate that. That being said, the Champions have limitations. We're volunteers. We can and will give our time and efforts, but there are some things we just can't do, such as funding the library's operating costs. Without funding for proper staffing, the library can't provide the community the experiences that Grande Prairie wants, needs, and deserves. The library is in a unique position to make this happen. It's a trusted organization in a flagship municipal space that happens to be centrally located downtown. We hope Mayor and Council will see not only the same value that we see in the library, but the same opportunity it presents to help make Grande Prairie a vibrant, successful, and growing community. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Nicole and Mark. Great to see you again, Mark. I know I was on that library board when you became a member of the library board and later chair. Yeah, so I was wondering if that was you representing the Champions of the Grande Prairie Public Library. So good to see that you're still staying active and involved in volunteerism. And yes, I think everyone around this table agrees how important the library is to our community. So I'll just look around the table to see if there's any questions for our delegation here today, maybe even online. See no. Oh, there's one. Councillor Berg.
Yeah. So we received a number of charts here, and it shows the Grande Prairie Public Library is relatively low compared to other cities. Is there a specific ask or dollars or resources that you're looking for?
Well, we have a few options. What our first ask would be that the funding that we requested in our grant, our initial grant request, which was 1.9 million, and what we got was 1.6. That was what we decided we needed to run functionally. To be comparable to Medicine Hat, for example, our most comparable mid-sized library, we would need 2.3 million. So these are the types of things that we're working on.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that question, Grant, and thank you for your answer, Nicole. Look around the table, see if there's any other questions. Oh, I got Councillor Bressey, and then I have a question too, unless Councillor Bressey takes it.
Great, thank you. Can you just tell me a little bit more? I've heard about some changes to hours coming to the library. Can you tell me a little bit more about what hours we can expect in the next little while?
So we discussed at great length reducing hours to the library to save some money. Many people on our board were very opposed to that, obviously, because of the damage it does to the community. So we're trying to do anything in our power to not make that happen. But if we do need to cut hours, we would likely cut hours on the weekend, which would see us closed Saturday and Sunday, which would obviously be very detrimental to Grande Prairie. Even as something as simple as use of a public washroom would be more difficult to find downtown were we to be closed on the weekends. So that's something that's been a hot topic of conversation around the board table at this time. So yeah, most likely it would be the weekend if we do need to cut hours.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nicole, and thank you, Councillor Bressey, for the question. I guess my question, I have two now, but they're both for you, Nicole. In regards to what the Grande Prairie Public Library is requesting as we go forward into budget, that 2.3, that symbolizes, if my math is right, roughly about a 25% increase to the budget line of what the City of Grande Prairie gives to the Grande Prairie Public Library. What do you intend to do if you were to get all of that?
Well, we would be able to staff appropriately because right now all of our staff are stretched very, very thin. It would provide standard of service similar to other libraries. It would improve our Wi-Fi for patrons, increased education, information and recreation programming, additional resources. And we have all sorts of hopes and dreams about maker space in the library and being able to provide even more than we already do. But I would say that the most important thing is appropriate staffing because right now, as I said, our staff are stretched very, very thin and we don't have, we want to get out there and do things, but we don't have the manpower.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Nicole. My second question, then I got a question from the mayor coming up. Is in regards to truth and reconciliation. Now, later on today, I think Councillor Bressey is going to be bringing forward a motion on a different committee. But what is the Grande Prairie Public Library doing as far as meeting the goals of the 94 calls to action of truth and reconciliation?
I'm not exactly sure what's in the plans for the future, but I know that recently on September 30th, they had an entire, we stayed open for Truth and Reconciliation Day, and we had a quiet reflection space in the library all set up. We had Indigenous displays throughout the library, and we invited people to come down to the library. And I understand it was a very busy day at the library. So that's something that we did do, but I'm not exactly sure what plans you have for the future. Are you aware of any, Mark?
I'm not aware of of any plans right now. I think there has been talk, and I know other libraries do, so this would be something we could certainly pursue with adequate funding, where they actually have dedicated resources in libraries to do Indigenous programming for the community and those things. So I'm not sure if that was something that has been planned by staff and the library director and staff there, but it is something that is common in most other public libraries, even public libraries that are in communities our size. So it is something, but right now I think they're, like you mentioned, like Nicole mentioned before, we're sort of meeting the basic minimum level of staffing at the library to do the basic level of library work in the community, let alone being able to sort of expand into these other very important areas that the city should be pursuing and the library would love to be pursuing.
Awesome. I have a couple just actually that sort of jumped in there. I know I've sat on the Peace Library Systems for 6 years, and we received Indigenous grant funding to do programs within libraries across the Alberta Northwest. Just curious, did the Grande Prairie Public Library receive those same fundings? And if not, I guess why not? It seemed like the government was handing it all out.
I'm not sure, honestly, if we received any of that funding and whether we applied for it or not. Yeah, I'm not sure, actually. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question, but I can find out and get back to you.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I have other questions, but I don't know if I need to ask them today or now, but I'll hand it over to Mayor Clayton for the next question. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I apologize for my lateness, and you may have already addressed this. You mentioned that your request for additional funding was mainly for staff support. If you were to get the same funding, you mentioned that you would have to be potentially offer reduced hours. So based on the same funding, you're reducing the hours, so you're looking for a request to, is it primarily for an increase in wages, increase in numbers, because you're currently open on weekends, so if you got the same funding, why would you have to close on weekends?
Yeah, so we can't sustain the funding that we have right now. It's just not enough to get by. So reducing hours would be a way to not have to lay off one of our staff members. So we would be choosing between cutting staff or closing. So it's one or the other at this point.
Okay, thanks. I have some other questions on that. I'll talk with when we, as a group, debate this. I guess another question, your charts mention a lot of salaries, municipal funding. There's no chart in there for usage. Can you tell me your usage numbers compared to the other municipalities that you compare the funding levels to?
I don't have those numbers handy as far as the use of the library. I don't know where we can get them, though. They have them handy. I just don't have them in front of me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Thank you for your answers. Nicole and Mark, look around the council table and see if there is any further questions. Not seeing any. So I'd like to thank you for coming in and for your presentation and for answering our questions, as easy as hard as they may have been. And we look forward to engaging in dialogue. And if there's any motions around the council table, I think for right now, it's sort of a receive for information. We'll get into budget, but thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll talk soon. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving right along to our Director's Service Area Report. So item 3.1, and I'll turn it over to Director Miller for the Community Services Update.
All right. Thank you, Chair Thiessen, and good morning, committee members. So I'll start off with the Community Knowledge Campus, and it was very busy this past weekend. So the CKC operational team had to remove a large amount of snow from the stadium field for the football games. There was 2 high school football games on Saturday, and both teams advanced to the provincial finals, which is at the Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton this coming weekend. And then the Piranhas hosted the second fall swim meet, welcoming Fort St. John on both Saturday and Sunday. HIT Volleyball hosted volleyball skills camps Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the field house. And then an update on school swimming lessons commenced this month with more schools reaching out for December and into the new year. And then also an uptake on school sports bookings, as well as increased requests for pool parties. And the fitness center, we're pleased to see that increased volumes there as well in traffic. We had the highest hourly count on the evening of November 10th with 43 patrons in 1 hour, which is almost back to pre-COVID days as well. So that's exciting to see. And then another stat, it's an increase of 17% in foot traffic for the first week in November compared to the first week in October. And also we've seen a 16% increase in membership sales from September to October, so more good news. And then with events and entertainment, ARC Resources, they have their free skate at the Day Bar Community Center on No School Fridays. It's from 3:30 to 4:45 p.m. And we're getting about 100 plus pre-registered to skate per event, so that's very good. And then on January 17th, the Storm is celebrating longtime volunteer Doug Eady. And during that game, it's between Brooks Bandits and the Storm. So if you could, spread the word, I guess, to come out and celebrate Doug's special event there. Then with facilities, the annual renewal projects review is complete. And they're prioritizing the renewal and facility condition index projects for 2022. The Parks Revy Yard Shop, that was a grant-funded project as well. So we've received substantial completion on that. And just a couple little deficiencies to address, and then Parks can move into that space. With Fleet, if you have a chance to go to the Evergreen Park Light Show, you'll see the new city sign, City of Grande Prairie sign. And that was a joint effort between the graphics team, Fleet, and also facilities. And I've seen photos of it, and it looks very nice. So they did a great job there. With sports development, wellness, and culture, the RFP for the Rec and Culture Strategic Plan has been awarded to RC Strategies. And RC Strategies is also the company that did the Regional Rec Master Plan for us several years ago. And the Activity and Reception Center is about 95% complete. Just a few supply chain issues that delayed it a little bit, but we're still anticipating that if it goes on as planned, it should be open by mid-December. So, and the ice allocation framework, that's being kicked off this week with a social media campaign, posters for arenas, and the regional ice managers meeting will also take place. And with transit, we've received the first of our two 35-foot new flyer buses. And they should be, that one should be in service in about 3 weeks. And we're also seeing an increase in ridership in both accessible and conventional systems. And Transit's working with communications on doing some messaging and maps for the new temporary route to the regional hospital. And that service will begin on December 4th as well, the same day the hospital opens up. That's my update, Mr. Chair, unless there's any questions.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Director Miller. I don't have any questions. I'll turn it to committee and council here. I do just want to offer a correction. It's weird because I never have to offer you a correction, but Doug Eady Day is this Saturday, November 27th. So if you're not doing anything this Saturday, head on down and let's support Doug Eady.
All right, sorry about that. It says January 27th in my notes here. So
yeah, I caught that right away. I was like, oh, I've got to shoot a video for that still. Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much, Director Miller. I'll turn it to the rest of committee and council. Don't see any hands going up, so I'll just thank you. Thank you for the director service there. Sounds like lots of good work, and get out on that ice if you can. It's a great time of year to do it. All right, moving right along to our next report, item 3.2, grant recommendations, and for that, oh, wait, I have Mr. Councillor Grantberg.
Yeah, there's an item in here that some may perceive as a conflict for me, so I'm just going to step out for this.
Okay. Awesome. So Councillor Berg is stepping out as under a perceived conflict of interest or bias under these grant recommendations. And speaking to that, speaking for it will be Miss Katie Bieberdorf, and I'll welcome her into the room. Welcome, Katie.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Thiessen. Just making sure you can hear me.
I'm clear.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you. So the Community Advisory Committee met on November 4th to review applications for a number of grants. We had the Pursuit of Excellence Scholarship. 5 applications were received for that. We had the Come Fly With Me Fund, which is an endowment fund held by the Community Foundation. 2 applications were received for that. Arts Development Funding, we had 2 applications for individual scholarships and individual projects. And for the Community Improvement Grant, we received 2 applications for matching grants up to $5,000 and 1 application for a straight cash grant of up to $2,500. We also included a recommendation for public art reserve transfer, which is for signage that is placed alongside the Windswept sculpture, which is located on Mama Way Concourse at the Montrose Cultural Center. We installed this plaque in response to public inquiry about the artwork and the meaning behind the sculpture, and we used a similar material that we have for the park signs, which is the bronze plaque on a metal stand. And administration recommends approval of grant funding in the amount outlined in the report. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for your report there, Ms. Bieberdorf, and your hard work on helping the Pursuit of Excellence Committee disseminate all those grant applications. I'll look and see if there's any questions about any of the projects, scholarships, or grants. Seeing none, then I will entertain a motion. All right, Councillor Bosch.
I'll make the motion to approve the recommendation for all the grants.
All right, so that is a motion to approve as recommended. And this would be committee to recommend council to approve funding allocations in the amounts presented for all these scholarship grants. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, I'll just make a quick comment. It looks like we got the vote going anyways. I'm totally in favor of this. There's lots of really great projects and people that are aspiring to higher ends, not just in themselves, but for our community. So looks like it's going through. Thank you very much, Ms. Bieberdorf. Quick, easy, painless. The best way to deliver a report. Moving right along. Item 3.3, we have the Coca-Cola Center Crawl Space, Geotech Liner RFP 2021-80. And for that, we have Mr. Mick Phillips here to present. Welcome, Mick.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope this is quick, easy, and painless as well. So the recommendation this morning is that we're asking committee to recommend council approve additional funding of $250,547.13 for the Coca-Cola Center Crawl Space Geotech Liner. My apologies for the typo in the recommendation. It should read RFP 2021-80. And that would be from the Future Expenditures Reserve. So just a little bit of history on this is that in 2015, added to the capital plan was $545,000 for the crawl space new geotech liner. As we go through some background on it, since 2015, we've had multiple attempts, and because of the nature of the project, that it's in a crawl space, it's a restricted space. It's a lot of physical labor, not a lot of room to get equipment in, so it's all physical manual labor. So in 2015, a request for proposal was put out, and due to insufficient data from a single bidder, we had to cancel that. The next year, we tried a different approach to see if we couldn't garner some more attention. We put it out as a tender as a crawl space encapsulation system. So basically the same thing, but just worded a little bit differently, a few changes to the approach, but still nonetheless a geomembrane liner to address the issue. And with that tender, there were no bids received for the project at all. In 2017, internally, we decided to see if we could do something to figure out what some of the causes might be, to gather a little more information in the hopes of getting this back out to market to get some interest in it. We cored a 6-inch hole directly outside the Coca-Cola Center plant room down at the bottom of the receiving area, and we immediately discovered that there was a flowing aquifer there. Now, we can't say that that flowing aquifer is a direct impact, but that is our assumption. It's not that we're flowing water into the crawl space. It's just that we noticed that aquifer at a very close proximity to that crawl space, and there may be an impact from that. So at that time, we installed 5 new sump tanks, and we added to the additional 3 that were there right from construction. In 2020, noticing that we were getting a little more degradation, a little more rust, a few more noticeable areas under the crawl space on the steel members underneath there, we did a non-destructive or a visual inspection of the crawl space columns that was in there. And we noticed that while it wasn't in a critical state, the ongoing humidity issue needed to be addressed, and that was a recommendation from the engineer at that time. And that brings us to 2021. So we've got the RFP out right now, was issued, and the evaluation resulted in the recommendation with a proposal value of $660,100. Just a quick analysis is that knowing, as I mentioned, that aquifer is flowing, we don't know if it's a direct impact, but we assume that it is. And so the only way is the viable option of sealing off that entire space. We did a very similar project to this with a high water table at one of our other buildings a few years back, and it worked very well. So knowing that we've got that knowledge of a similar project and knowing that it does work, we've decided that this is a good move forward. And we are thankful that we actually had some interest from the community, and we've got some bids on there. I should also mention that when checking the records, we've got no record or information that would suggest that there was any knowledge of that aquifer during the time of construction back in 2003. Not that I think that it would make any difference at this point. It's just pointing it out that there's no records that suggested it was there at that time, but it is there now. And so having to deal with it is a priority. I should also note that the recommendation with this project does include an improved ventilation system with dehumidification. So there is a ventilation system in there now that does move air throughout that space, but the component of this project would include a dehumidification system. I should also note that the remediation plan has no negative environmental impact on the flowing aquifer. I reached out to our environmental department and let them know that this is what was happening, and they agreed that the proposed method would not have any impact on that flowing aquifer. And I should also note that while there are no immediate risks, failure to mitigate this crawl space humidity issue will result in potentially significant infrastructure risks in the future, just as any situation would where we've got high humidity that doesn't get mitigated. So I'll just go through very quickly the budget and financial implications in that the original budget in 2015 was $545,000. To date, $18,800 has been spent on the installation of the additional sump tank pump units, the electrical supplied to them, the non-destructive structural review, and the coring of the test hole that discovered the aquifer. In 2020, we had $116,000 that was transferred to the Coke Center chiller replacement project. That transfer of those funds was done when we discovered that the new chiller was going to have to be placed in its own room. So there was insufficient funds at that time, and it was determined by our finance department that this was the best move forward. And so that's where that money was transferred from and to. The current balance of the capital account is $409,552.87, and the highest ranked proposal resulted in the bid amount of $660,100, leaving a shortfall of $250,547.13. Finance Department has also identified that the future expenditure reserve would be the most appropriate funding source for this. And so that's a lot of information to digest in a very short period of time, but I'll open it up to questions, please.
Right, looks like we got a bit of a queue being established here right now. So first things first, I saw Councillor O'Toole and Councillor O'Connor, and I also saw Councillor Laners online. Any other questions? We'll start the queue with that, and then just raise your hand, let me know. Thanks, Mick.
Hey, Mick, Kevin here. I was just wondering if when you did your research and did your core hole, was there any water lines from Aquaterra nearby that maybe have cracked or caused the water to come in there? It could even be from one of the schools.
Through the chair, good question. And with all the research and work that's been done on utilities used on that site, there was nothing out of the ordinary that we found at that time.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor O'Connor.
Through the chair, thank you very much. Great presentation. In my previous life, I've had quite a bit of experience with water mitigation underneath large structures, and I think the proposal that you brought forward is reasonable, having done a lot of work in crawl spaces and to stop mold from growing. So you're adding the environmental concern, which was going to be, and getting the air exchange happening. But the geotech liner in coordination with your sump pumps is a very, I would recommend, well, I don't have that authority. Anyway, I think you should go ahead with this project. I will be in favor of supporting this.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor O'Connor. And yes, you do have the power in this if committee sends this forward to council, so you'll have a say in how this plays out. All right, moving right along, we got some other expert advice from Councillor John Laners.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. You know, I'm just curious more than anything, Mick, because I haven't seen the particulars of this, but I'm doing 2 of those kinds of projects right now, and what we're finding works is about an 8-foot French drain around the building with filled with tile rock and exterior sump pumps. I'm not sure if that's been considered or not. That seems to work, but I don't know what you've done. I know you've got some sump pumps in there, but I'm not sure how they're tied in and that kind of. I'm just wondering if that option has been considered, because that seems to work where I've done that stuff. So. Thanks for your question.
Through the chair, yeah, that is something that we have considered, and so as a staged approach, we know that the site sits about a meter lower. If anybody that has recently visited, when you do a quick visual, you'll realize that when you're in the parking lot, you actually go down about a meter, and so drainage on the site is another component, and we do have another capital project in the relocation and the revision of one of the storm drains on that site.
Yeah, this is not so much a storm drain. This is actually a physical, creating almost like a moat of weeping tile rock around the building, which is then tied into a storm sewer potentially, but often they're too high. So you have to use sump pumps, exterior sump pumps, that kind of stuff. It tends to be a lot cheaper alternative than what you're talking about, but you know, if you looked at it and said, you know, there's no way that's not going to work, be curious as to why that might be the case, and just yeah. Anyway.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Laners. Thanks for your answers, Mr. Phillips. Looking around the table, I see Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Thiessen. So, Mick, the one thing that I'm curious about, and it's kind of an extension of Kevin's question, is can we be sure that it's an aquifer? Again, if we didn't sense the aquifer before, I just question if it's coming from the building or the parking lot or, again, some other infrastructure.
Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, through the chair, thank you for the question. Yeah, because that aquifer has been flowing at the same rate since that hole was cored, we determined that it was unlikely that there would be a source other than the aquifer. And looking at the landscaping of that area from past aerial photography, it looks like, you know, there may have been that low area, and just the information that we received from the engineers that we had spoke to at the time, it led us to believe that it's likely that it's an aquifer. The level of the water has never changed. So when we first cored the hole, that water level it only came up, I would say, to about the 6-foot level, and I'm trying to remember to recall the actual full depth of the hole, but I think we only went down about 20 feet or 30 feet if I'm not mistaken, but that water level never rose about that 6 feet from ground level down, and so it has never changed. So,
thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Councillor Berg and Mr. Phillips. I have Councillor O'Connor again here.
Thank you, through the chair. Mick, there is tests that you can do. Aquaterra can check for fluorides and chlorine in the water to see if it's an actual water source. So I've had to use that service in the past. And can't tell you how to do your job, but there's a way to check it out. Thank you.
Thanks for your input there, Councillor O'Connor. Yes, and I guess I have one question. A couple years ago in South Bear area and Country Club, that same aquifer, I'm not sure if it's like a massive aquifer or if it's a different one, sort of filled up its water banks and came up to the road, and the road just started dissipating. We had garbage trucks and fire trucks getting stuck in the road as they were driving by, and we had to move some funds around to fix those roads and put a liner down in there. The only reason why I say this is because for the 2 years prior to that, we're just doing quick patches, quick fixes until we actually got to the heart of the problem and fixed it. So there hasn't been any water coming up from that spring. So with this work done to the crawl space and setting in the geotech liner to fix the issues perhaps caused by the aquifer, when all is said and done, is this the patchwork, or would this completely fix the issues?
Mr. Chair, very good question. This will completely mitigate the rust issues that are happening within that space due to the humidity. If there were any further issues, ground settling or the aquifer causing other issues, we haven't explored those at this time. But the issue that we're trying to solve, yes, it would solve it completely.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll look around the table to see. Oh, I have Councillor Bosch.
Thank you for your report. I'm just a little curious. This seems to be a little doubtful from some of the other council members that have spoken. The security of this issue being fixed for $250,000 plus, I have concerns that what if this isn't the only issue? Is there a bigger problem? Are you like 100% sure that this is going to be repaired with $250,000 or so?
Mr. Phillips.
Through the chair. So yes, the total cost of this project is $660,000. And as mentioned earlier, the majority of the work that would happen within that crawl space, because it is fairly large, it's all physical labor and then the installation of this liner. So as mentioned, if there are other issues which we have not noticed at this time, we have not noticed any other ground settling, building movement, anything like there's nothing that has led us to believe that there's any other issues other than the humidity that we're experiencing in the crawl space. So yes, I can say that the installation of the geotech liner and the dehumidification system would solve the problem of what we're trying to solve right now.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I thought she had another question. I was looking at her. She was listening intently. Any other questions from committee or council? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Phillips, for your report and for engaging and answering all the questions that were posed to you. And I'll look for a motion for this going forward. Councillor Bosch.
Okay. Since we have some security with this process, I guess I will make the recommendation that committee recommend council approve additional funding of $250,547.13 for the Coca-Cola Center crawl space, geotech liner, RPF, or RFP should be, 2021-80 project from the future expenditures revenue. Or reserve. My apologies.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bosch, for that motion. That is in order, and thanks for catching that little typo. I caught it too, but I figured we'd catch it. You did. Awesome. Any discussion or debate on the motion at hand? Seeing none, I'll call to question. And that motion carries. Thank you again for your report, Mr. Phillips. I guess we'll see you on Monday when council discusses this and moves it forward. Looking at the agenda, we have no correspondence, no other business, so that'll send us right to our outstanding items list. And to that, I'm going to turn the camera back to Director Miller on our large list of outstanding items.
All right. Thank you, Chair Thiessen. So just 3 items on the list, and they're all on track to meet the expected report dates. 2 for Mr. Harvard in January, And then next month we have Katie Bieberdorf coming back on the cost disparities in the Twin Ice Arenas report. So unless there's any questions.
All right, and I'll put it to council and committee. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. I would move that committee approve the outstanding items list as presented.
Awesome. That motion is totally in order. Thanks for being on the spot. And I'll call the question. And that motion carries. And with that, this committee meeting is adjourned.